Hello, super friends. Before we get into the Black Lightning episode, we got to tell you about another comic book, Jupiter Jet. Our comic book, right, Ashley?
Yes, Jason.
Issue 2 is coming out this week on what day exactly, Ashley?
Why, it's on January 17th.
That's right. It's going to be available at all your local comic book stores and also available digitally on Comixology, also through Amazon.com. We're really proud of this book about a 16-year-old girl with a jetpack, and we have a synopsis for issue 2 for you right now. Ashley, what is that?
Teenage superhero Jupiter Jet must push her jetpack to the limit in order to outrun the villainous Praetor Pluto, who is hot on her heels. But will a new invention built by her brother Chuck help Jupiter Jet's mission or harm it?
That's right. Go into your local comic book shop, pick up issue 2 of Jupiter Jet this week or in the far future if you're listening to this in the future. And if your comic book shop doesn't have it, please talk to your friendly comic book store employee. Ask them to order the book because we want to make more comic books for you. If you enjoy any of the stories we tell you about on this podcast, I think you're going to enjoy our comic book. And we want to give a mad thank you to all the people that have been tweeting us pictures of Jupiter Jet issue 1. So please continue doing that. We love seeing that you enjoy our jetpack girl. And also there's a variant cover for issue 2.
There is a variant cover by Jen St. Ange, who does such amazing work, and you may recognize her for such things as The Misfits or Bingo Love.
That's right. Jupiter Jet issue 2 continues the mystery. You're going to start seeing that some of the puzzle pieces coming together and where we're sending this series off in this 5-issue miniseries. But thank you so much for reading. Please go check it out at your local comic book store. And now on to the lesson. It's time to wander into the Black Thunderstorm and get lit by some Black Lightning as your geek history lesson on Jefferson Pierce is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Thunderstorm Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University, because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or team from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about it in about an hour. And this week, Jason Inman, we are talking about...
We're talking about me?
We're talking about you. Fun fact, people have requested Geek History Lessons on both of us and our shared origin.
They will never
happen.
They will never happen.
Instead, we're talking about the much more interesting new addition to the CW. Who's that again, Jason?
Black Lightning.
I hope that's his theme.
Black Lightning. Throwing all the thunder. He'll light up you and make you go asunder.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive.
I feel a Goldfinger vibe for that.
I hope so.
I really do. I think it should be classy and yellow and lots of dancing gold ladies. Electrified. A fun fact about this. So the new show, Black Lightning, is premiering starring Cress Williams, who was Jem'Hadar on Star Trek once. He was one of my favorite Jem'Hadar, and I'm really excited to see him as Black Lightning. This episode was suggested in our Patreon exclusive private Facebook group, the Mind University. Now, this is a group where some of our patrons can connect with us, and we put the poll out. We were like, who do you want us to do? What do you want us to do in the next month? And they suggested Black Lightning. So congratulations, Mind University class. This is the episode that is for you. And if you want to get into that group, you got to go to patreon.com/Johnwin, where you can support the show and help pick future episodes.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go into the first section of our podcast, the 10-cent origin.
The 10-cent origin is where Professor Jason is going to lay down all the basic power sets, origins, and cool stuff in case you go to a sweet DC TV themed cocktail party and somebody wants to chat you up about Black Lightning.
Now, of course, Black Lightning is a DC Comics character. The first appearance was Black Lightning #1.
Imagine that.
In April of 1977, same year as Star Wars.
Ooh.
He was created by Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eden. I think Eden is how you say his last name. His real name is Jefferson Pierce. He, of course, is a metahuman, and his team affiliations have been the Outsiders and the Justice League. His abilities are electric generation and manipulation, electric transportation, force field generation, and he's an expert martial artist. He's an Olympic-level athlete, and he's in pretty good shape. We will go into more of his powers because I do think you need to know, since he's such a lightning character and those powers can be so nebulous, I I do go into specifics. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, let's go into the meet cute.
Cool. And the meet cute is the part of the podcast where we tell you where we first meted these characters and how cute it was. And Jason, I'm very interested. Where did you first meet Black Lightning?
He showed up in a lot of the random 90s DC team-up books. Now, he had a series in the 90s. I didn't read it. But I first really became aware of him in two cases. First was in the President Luthor storyline. If you don't know what that is, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they made Lex Luthor the president of the United States. And Lex Luthor picked Jefferson Pierce as his Secretary of Education because Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning, is a teacher.
Which is awesome.
Which is a cool thing. I like that addition of his character. But to be honest with you, also as well, there was a toy line called Total Justice, Batman Total Justice. And it didn't have Superman in the first wave, which is crazy. But it was about Batman fighting Darkseid, and the idea is that they made the action figures, but then the action figures all had armor that could go on top of them. Now, I loved it because at the time, there were no DC action figures unless there were movies.
Yeah.
And so all you would get would be Batman and his rogues. And this was the first line that gave us the Justice League. I went crazy about this line because I had an action figure, Kyle Rayner, in it. I bought that action figure. But in this action figure line, they also had Black Lightning.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they had his 90s costume where he has like the black top and the red bottom and it's a jacket. And that was really like, I was like, oh, who is this Black Lightning guy? He must be a Justice Leaguer. So that was a little bit of a combination of how I met Black Lightning. Actually, he doesn't appear on Batman the Animated Series. So how did you meet Black Lightning?
So I first heard of Black Lightning when the Static show was on. And I had a friend who lied to me and told me that Static's dad was Black Lightning.
That's going to come up in this lesson.
Which I hope everyone will assume it was a sweet, innocent mistake made by a child. Because it's wrong.
But it makes sense, right?
It does. There is a weird, you can find a pretty good article about it online. There's a weird trend of African-American people with electric powers in comics around the 70s.
Well, Static's a 90s character, though. But
he is a 90s character, but we got Storm and, you know.
Sure.
There's
I get it.
It's just an interesting article.
But from the viewpoint of a child, I could understand.
Yeah, it is illogically, but I think it's sort of sweet, the confusion. And I actually first read Black Lightning in the same story that you did, the President Luthor story.
Oh, okay, cool.
When I was working at the first comic book store I ever worked at, and I hadn't read Jack Nothing about Superman.
Jack Nothing.
But you gotta like scream it more because she murders that song. It's not so much sung as it is screamed at you. So I was doing a lot of Superman related reading at the time, and I read the President Luthor story, and I thought he was great.
He is good. He's not really Black Lightning in that storyline.
No, he's more Jefferson Pierce, excellent politician.
Yeah. Now, before we get to the lesson, today's episode is brought to you by the amazing ZipRecruiter. Now, a fresh new year has begun, and if you're setting new goals for your business, it's extremely difficult to reach them without the right people on your team. Now, some of those people could have lightning powers, but that's up to you to decide, and ZipRecruiter has transformed how you go about finding them. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click. Then ZipRecruiter actively looks for the most qualified candidates. You could say it actively looks like lightning. Ooh. And it invites them to apply to your job. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you. It finds them just like President Luthor found Jefferson Pierce. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter and supervillains who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and supervillain organizations of all industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free.
What?
That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/geekhistory. That's ZipRecruiter.com/geekhistory. Geek History. And you get to try it for free because ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. Thank you so much for supporting the show, ZipRecruiter.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into the History 101.
The main meat of the lesson where Professor Jason is going to teach us everything that's amazing about Black Lightning.
I really like Black Lightning. He has slowly become a fictional character of the DC universe, even though we discovered him late, that I really like now. I really, really do enjoy him, just like Static. Static was another one of the characters. Man, I would love to do a Static Shock lesson, I'll tell you that.
Well, hopefully when Milestone finally comes back, please bring it back.
They are bringing it back.
Well, I know, but they've also been saying that for 5 years.
Sure.
Hopefully we'll get to do some things like that, or Icon, or Rocket.
All right, so like we talked about earlier, before I get to Jefferson Pierce's fictional history, since this character is basically named after his power, lightning, I want to explain exactly what that means, because a lot of writers could just use that to be zappity, 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 and that's all you get, right? And it's very nebulous. So originally, Jefferson Pierce was described as having no innate powers, and he used the belt that allowed him to generate a force field and project electrical bolts. This power was later revealed to exist as a result of Jefferson having the meta gene, according to Invasion number 3. So he originally thought he had no powers.
So he just Batmaned it.
Yes, basically he had this belt. Now, I will say his origin has been retconned a couple of times, and in the future retcons, he does have superpowers. There is no belt.
Well, it's just more interesting.
Sure. Now, let me tell you about his powers.
Okay.
Black Lightning is able to shoot extremely powerful lightning bolts, strong enough to kill a man if he wanted to, just like lightning. But he usually just uses it to scare his enemies. While he does fire his lightning at people, he tries to reduce the voltage so that he can stun them. And in a pinch, he can ionize the atmosphere, creating localized lightning storms with hundreds of strikes a minute. He can also create quick changes of electricity in his fists to give his punches more of a shock. So it's like you're getting punched by a taser.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Black Lightning can also turn into complete electricity himself, and in his electrical form, he is completely invulnerable. He can't be hit with physical objects, he can't be poisoned, and he can't be infected with anything. He doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to breathe, and he doesn't need water. He can last forever. He can also go through conditions that would normally kill him, even go into space in his pure electricity form and survive. And he can also shoot himself vast distances and travel the exact same way that electricity can, almost like at the speed of light through electrical cables and wires.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. He can also pass through walls while he's in this form, and basically he's superhuman. Now, this is a form that he doesn't discover until much later down the line. We're not going to really talk about it that much because it doesn't really affect his stories, but every once in a while, Jefferson Pierce, like the Hulk, like really gets angry, and he and he turns into this form.
Cool.
So, he also has the ability, based on his rage, that he can turn his lightning powers black.
Oh, interesting.
That means he is really mad, he's hulked out, and he gets stronger the angrier he gets. So if you ever see Black Lightning in an image where his lightning is black, that means he's super mad.
Yeah, but it looks really cool.
He can also create huge walls or bubbles of energy, which can take punishment, basically force fields, which can block fists, bullets, and other physical attacks, including cars that try to run over him, which he has been known to stop with these force fields.
Good.
His powers also allow him to absorb energy in order to make himself stronger, and he can heal quicker whenever he does this. Now, he has a fondness for absorbing lightning from thunderstorms. He says it feels better, but he can basically drain power from power plants or basically any other things. He has been a couple stories where he has drained a city of their power completely.
I think it's really interesting that like natural lightning is better.
Yep. He can also use power in an offensive way by draining energy from machines that might be attacking him. So, from what I've just told you, Black Lightning seems pretty strong.
Very powerful,
okay?
yeah.
Now, my question to you is, Ashley, did you think that Black Lightning was this strong now that you know his powers?
I definitely didn't. I guess I thought of him more as a lightning bender for anyone who knows
basically
that
just
Avatar short.
Zap.
Yeah. But I think that's a really intelligent way to use that power creatively. Well done to the writers.
All right, now let me tell you his original origin, and then we're going to expand because they did do a retcon of it.
Great.
Jefferson Pierce grew up in Suicide Slum, which is a neglected part of Metropolis, which got its name from the idea that people only escape the slum by killing themselves. which is nothing to joke
That's
about.
horrible.
But Suicide Slum is a long time addition.
Metropolis staple, yeah.
Exactly, yes. His father was accidentally shot during a mob hit, and times were quite tough for Jeff and his widowed mother. A month or so later, an Italian tailor named Peter Gamby opened a shop beneath their apartment and helped them through their financial difficulties. Peter was there to care for Jeff while his mother worked long hours to support them because Jeff was basically a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
Over time, Peter Gamby began to fulfill Jeff's need for a father figure. Now, growing up, Jeff pushed himself in athletics and in his studies and soon had an aptitude for English, reading, and poetry. He even penned a few lines which stuck in Peter Gamby's memory. Justice, like lightning, should ever appear to some men hope, to other men fear. At the age of 18, Jeff managed to make it to the Olympics, gaining fame from the media profiles which highlighted his rise from Metropolis's poor suicide slum. And Jeff used this to send a positive message back to everyone in his home neighborhood that you could actually get out.
That's interesting because that is a narrative that people love at the Olympics. I mean, look at Gabby Douglas, for example.
Having won some medals at the Olympics and some attention, Jeff received scholarships and endorsement offers which allowed him to go to college and receive both an English major and a teaching degree. 4 years after he left college, he went again to the Olympics for a second time and won the decathlon. He became a gold medal winner in the decathlon.
One of the more difficult competitions.
After that, he began a teaching job upstate in New Carthage, but then returned to Metropolis once his mother died. In his time away, Jeff married a young woman named Lynn Stewart. He and Lynn were together for a short time, and then they had a daughter named Anissa. I've also heard it said Anissa. I have not watched the pilot for Black Lightning yet, so it'll be interesting to see which way they go with it. I've heard it both ways. But at the age of 11, this girl manifested meta-human superpowers.
Dun, dun, dun.
She was discovered that she was able to alter the density, the weight of her body. Regardless, Anissa conceded to her parents' wishes and pursued a pre-med degree instead of costumed adventuring. And Jeff was so protective of his daughter that he never mentioned her to anyone. Now, this is a slight retcon as well to explain why. How does Black Lightning have a daughter if we've never seen her before?
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from.
That's fine.
Jeff is not a terrible dad. Okay, that's what I'm.
In fact, he's a really good dad.
He actually is a really good dad. When Jeff and Lynn divorced, Anissa went to live with her mother, and Lynn was disappointed with Jeff for not being the community activist that she was. He only seemed to be care about getting himself out of Suicide Slum. Upon Jeff's return to Metropolis, he noticed that nothing had changed in Suicide Slum. Pierce decided that it was time to make a difference, and indeed, back at his old high school of Garfield High School, Jeff quickly made an impression when he kicked a drug pusher off the premises, but was followed suit by humiliating 3 members of the criminal organization known as the 100. Now, the 100 is a gang in Black Lightning's storyline. It's also they're going to be the main villain of season 1 of Black Lightning.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I like that.
In retaliation, the gunman killed Earl Clifford, one of Pierce's students, and left his corpse in the high school gymnasium. A distraught Jeff related the tragedy to Peter Gamby, who still lived in the neighborhood, who urged him to fight back in a persona that wouldn't invite counterattacks on his students, presenting him with a predominantly blue costume with lightning bolts. And thus, Black Lightning was born.
Oh, so this is like the Tailor in Invincible.
Basically, this is where they got that idea.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
While in costume, Pierce played to the era's stereotypical perception of African-American men by affecting a jive-talking speech pattern and wearing a mask/wig combination that gave him a large afro. This allowed him to perfectly hide his identity from being a well-educated school teacher. Now, Ashley, I have to ask you, did you know that Black Lightning's afro was fake?
I did know that, actually.
Oh.
I did know that.
How?
Because I did a little bit of reading on Black Lightning when the series was announced. But before that, no, I didn't. I'd seen the pictures of him with the afro, and I always assumed that it was real.
It's a weird-looking mask. Like, it has the domino mask, and then the afro is like,
kind of comes out of it. Yeah.
It's a weird mask. Not good. It would be fun for Halloween parties.
I don't know if it would. I don't know if it works in function I don't know if it's attached to the domino mask. I don't know.
Look, if a guy is like sparking you with lightning, I don't think the last thing I think you're going to notice is his afro.
Oh, I'm not questioning the continuity of it in the reality of the DC universe. I'm questioning it as a Halloween costume in our universe.
All right. Now, let me tell you about the slight recons that happens in the Amazing Black Lightning Year 1 miniseries that sort of updates this storyline. It kind of compresses it a little bit more.
Sure.
Now, in that book, Jefferson Pierce returns to his old neighborhood in South Side, which is the actual name of Suicide Slum. Now, I did a little bit of research on this. Mm-hmm. As far as I could tell, this is the first time that Suicide Slum is given a name besides Suicide Slum. And I really like it because in this comic book, Black Lightning Year 1, you see a billboard that has Southside on it, and the letters are crossed out until it spells suicide, which I thought was really cool.
I appreciate that because it would be kind of horrible if the actual name of a neighborhood was Suicide Slum. Like there are, people have nicknames for neighborhoods and stuff like that, but if that was just what like city officials call it,
well,
bad job, Metropolis.
We're going to build up all these apartments over here. Then there's Science City, and there's Bedford, and then, let's put some apartments in Suicide Slum.
Yeah, really.
Hey, Bob, I don't think we should name. Suicide Slum is the name we're going for.
I'm the mayor.
Yep, I'm so Southside is the section of the city of Metropolis that he grew up with. He returned with his wife, Lynn Stewart, and his daughter, Anissa, to become the principal of Garfield High School.
Nice.
Southside, as it once was known, was where his father, who was actually a renowned journalist, Alvin Pierce, had been murdered. Now, guilt over this event was a factor in his decision to leave the city of Metropolis. Suicide Slum at that time had been torn apart by a local organized criminal gang called the 100. They'd also been torn apart by shady corporations and crooked local politicians like city council member, Tobias Whale.
Hey, I also want to say I think it's really funny because the 100 is another CW show and it just makes me laugh.
It's a little, who knows? Maybe the people that created the 100 show were fans of Black Lightning.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
A family friend and tailor, Peter Gamby, had taught a much younger Jefferson how to suppress his inborn metahuman abilities so that he would not accidentally hurt any of the people that he cared about. And upon his return, Gamby suggested to Jefferson that he should use his powers to help the neighborhood and refers him to a plaque with the paraphrased Milo Sweetman quote. Now, Milo Sweetman is a 14th century Irish archbishop. This is where they originally got the original quote, but in the original version, it was that Jefferson had wrote this. But the quote is, and there's a nice little plaque of it, "Justice like lightning should ever appear to some men hope, to other men fear." Now, that is what's on the plaque. The original text of it is paraphrased. The original text from Miles Sweetman actually reads, "Justice like lightning ever should appear to few men's ruin, but to all men's fear. Of mortal justice, if thou scorn the rod, believe and tremble, thou art judged of God." So they just took out the last sentence.
Yeah.
By the way, Milo Sweetman died in 1380.
Ooh, so he's outside of copyright protection.
That's right. So if you want to make your Milo Sweetman superhero comic book, the chance is ripe.
Yeah, make your whatever your version of Dr. Marston and the Wonder Woman.
Call it Justice Like Lightning.
There you go.
There you go. Appalled by the public murder of Earl Clifford, one of his students, Pierce tried to intervene on behalf of the school children, but quickly learned that the 100 objected violently to any interference. Pierce adopts the costumed identity of Black Lightning. Years later, in another storyline, he would tell fellow African-American superhero, Mr. Terrific, that he chose the name Black Lightning because he was the only one of us around at the time, and he wanted to make sure everyone knew who they were dealing with.
I think that's a nice retcon of a problematic naming convention from the 60s and 70s.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Now, very soon, Inspector Henderson of the Metropolis Police Department shows up.
Who you might remember from Maggie Sawyer.
I was just about to ask you, do you remember who he is, Ashley? Who is he?
Inspector Henderson is the person who Maggie comes to Metropolis to replace, I believe.
She works for him. Yeah.
Or she works for him and then she replaces him later.
Inspector Henderson reaches out to Black Lightning and tries to get him to be an ally after he's been around zapping the 100, because Henderson doesn't know which politicians or cops are paid off by Tobias White. Later, Clark Kent shows up to do a story on Jefferson Pierce. Remember, Suicide Slum is in Metropolis, and we get a small reveal a little bit later about why Superman stays away from this borough of his own city and why it would need a second vigilante.
What's up, Superman?
Well, Superman reveals that there is actually a magical element that somehow exists in Southside that negates his powers. Remember, Superman's two weaknesses are kryptonite and magic. Not lead.
I know, that's one. No, remember we made all those lead jokes last week? Yeah, magic.
Lead is Mon else. All right. Before a showdown with the 100, Black Lightning is contacted by Talia, who is interested in helping him take down the 100. He refuses her help, but then a giant albino monster kicks his butt, and Jefferson learns that Peter Gamby set up his father for murder. He then goes over to
that jerk.
Yep. He then goes over to Peter's place and pulls the plaque with the poem off the wall. But soon after, Peter is shot and left for dead on the front steps of Jefferson's house.
Aww.
And Jefferson goes back to Gamby's tailor shop and finds Talia waiting for him. Now, right at this point, you might be like, oh, this Talia al Ghul thing is such a retcon, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Talia al Ghul actually appears in Black Lightning's original solo series.
Well, it's funny because you said Talia and you didn't say Al Ghul, and I was like, is this another character named Talia?
I apologize. I assumed too much when I said Talia. I figured everybody would go with Talia al Ghul. I apologize.
That's okay. I didn't make the logic leap quite as fast as probably everyone else did.
Sure. Talia al Ghul.
Very strange that she shows up
but
here.
But she was in the original Black Lightning as well. I went back to check because I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
So she tells Jefferson about the origins of the 100. Basically, men and women from around the world in 1462 came to America and they pulled their knowledge for eternal life. They were successful, but learned that they could only draw eternal life from land that they owned and steal strength from the people of their land with the strongest emotions. Now, the modern 100 is led by one of the original people from 1462, a doctor named Bjorn Gustavsson.
Sure.
Who has taken over the modern name of Victor Swan, who is Tobias Whale's main supporter. He is the giant albino monster that Jefferson Pierce fought earlier in the series.
Of course he is. Why not?
Yep. After Peter Gamby's funeral, Lynn, Jefferson's wife, leaves Jefferson with Anissa in tow, explaining the divorce. A track meet celebration with Tobias Whale in attendance. Jefferson gets info that his brother-in-law is being tortured by the 100. He leaves the track meet only to be stopped by Superman. Superman tells Black Lightning to stop, and he says, I'll rescue your brother-in-law. You go back to the track meet, because he's like, I can sense the magical element is that the track meet. And he was
so
like,
I can't go
he's
there.
like, this is obviously a trap. They're trying to send you away. You stay there. I'll go get your brother-in-law. He'll be safe. A little bit of a Batman v Superman, like, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Bjorn then starts a hallucination across the track meet with his magic, because he's a magical character, that makes the cops see high school kids as demons, and the cops start firing on the African-American high school kids.
Ooh, that's harshly topical.
Yep. Black Lightning Year One was published about, I think, like 12, 13 years ago.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yep. Jefferson jumps into the middle of it and protects them all with a force field.
Oh, good.
Letting the whole community of Southside see Black Lightning as their true hero, while Superman rescues his brother-in-law. After this giant celebratory track meet where the whole community is going, lightning, lightning, lightning.
That's cool.
Lynn soon calls Jefferson and reveals that she is pregnant again.
Oh, yeah, because I was like, they have two daughters.
They have two daughters. We'll talk about the daughters in a minute.
That's fine.
Then Black Lightning faces off with Bjorn one last time with Tobias in attendance, and Bjorn tries to take Black Lightning's body, but Tobias Whale interrupts the ritual, and Bjorn takes over Tobias's body. This ruins the magical ritual, growing Tobias Whale to his abnormal size, creating the classic Tobias Whale that we know from the 70s.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know there was an actual origin for that. I just thought he was a weird-looking dude.
Yeah. Black Lightning, at this point, has now saved Southside. He's the hero of Southside, and that is the end of Black Lightning Year One. Ashley, What are your thoughts on Black Lightning's origin?
I think the retcon is great, actually.
The art's by Cully Hamner, by the way. It looks beautiful.
Who's also just a great artist on everything he draws.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read it now. Mm-hmm. So I know DC
it's on Comixology. They're reprinting it, actually.
They're reprinting it, yeah. So go buy it. Mm-hmm. Sneak peek, recommended reading.
All right, yeah, it is.
Sorry.
Black Lightning next met a man who would become one of his biggest allies in crime fighting and one of the most important partners of his entire life. Ashley, who do you think it is?
I have no idea.
It's a DC superhero.
Guy Gardner.
Guy Gardner?
I was like, who's the least helpful person I could think of? I don't know. Tell me.
Batman.
Oh, really? I was going to guess Batman as a joke. God damn it.
Together, they investigated a series of student abductions, including one student abduction, a student named Dick Grayson.
I know the story.
Yep. And then Black Lightning eventually met Superman and Black Canary before the case had closed. This adventure also led him to meet Green Arrow for the first time, which these two acknowledged a kindred spirit, especially in their love for social justice.
Nice. Because this is anti-fat cats, Ollie.
Oh, yeah, totally. Basically, after meeting Green Arrow nominates Jefferson Pierce for membership in the Justice League. They accept Jefferson, but Jefferson says no because he's like, that's too big. I'm going to stick with, street level stuff.
Yeah.
The Justice League respected the decision, and Black Lightning soon teamed up with Superman because, they're in the same town.
Yeah.
To solve the murder of a girl named Trina Shelton, who was shot and killed by a stray bullet during an altercation between Lightning and some muggers. So the muggers fired off and it accidentally killed Trina. As a result, this stress made Jefferson Pierce lose his lightning powers because of a psychological block and his guilt.
That's something that I think is not explored enough with people with metahuman powers.
Like a PTSD kind of situation?
Yeah.
Batman kept Pierce in mind when he also grew frustrated with the Justice League, hoping to rescue his friend Lucius Fox from war-torn Markovia. The Dark Knight recruited Jeff to infiltrate the country, posing as Fox's brother. Inevitably, he was forced to become Black Lightning again when he ended up being captured alongside Batman. And because of this stress, his powers reactivated.
Cool.
While prisoners of Baron Bedlam, the most comic book of comic booky villains, Batman managed to help Black Lightning, of course, like I said, recover his electric powers, and they escape from prison. Then Black Lightning and Batman joined the war in Markovia to defeat Bedlam, and after a successful mission, Black Lightning became a member of Batman's new team,
The Outsiders.
That is correct. Another fun fact for you, Ashley.
Yes.
You are a huge fan of a character from Markovia. Do you know who that character is?
No.
Tara.
Oh, yeah, I did know that.
And from the Teen Titans.
Tara
also,
Markov, yeah.
Yep, and also her brother, Geoforce.
Yeah.
Who is also...
I'm not a fan of his.
Who will become a member of the Outsiders. He just has a bad costume.
He's just not as interesting as Tara.
Mm-hmm. As a member of the Outsiders, Black Lightning was eventually challenged by the Master of Disaster, who was hired to kill him. Yep. And Black Lightning surrendered to prevent them from killing innocents. The Outsiders, of course, would rescue Black Lightning, and he soon learned that the fathers of Trina Shelton had hired this villain to kill him.
Oh.
At the end of this whole affair, the mother of Trina finally forgave Black Lightning and realized that it was an accident. So that whole issue is kind of put to bed now.
Good.
The next 4 years saw a new confidence envelop Black Lightning as he forged new friendships with the Outsiders, found a teaching post at Gotham City's Edison High to be closer to Batman.
Yeah.
He, of course, got the closure in Trina Shelton's death. He revisited the Olympics for the third time and even had an amicable reunion with Lynn Stewart, who is now at the time the president of a public relations firm.
What? Like, are they dating?
They would have a couple of days here and there, but nothing
that's
official.
That's nice that they're...
Probably some booty calls,
Right. That's nice that they're...
some Black Lightning calls. So, soon after that, Black Lightning would move to the Brick City, which is a neighborhood in his father's hometown. Now, this was in the original version of the origin, of course. The ongoing menace known as the Royal Family had figured into a school shooting that left Jeff critically wounded and one of his best friends, teacher Walter Casco, dead. Now, Jeff's physical and emotional recovery, he reflected on his career as Black Lightning and the many deaths along the way. And despite the Outsiders at this point had been like, we're fed up with you, Batman, get off our team. Jeff actually renewed his ties with Batman to help him clear him of charges when he was a serial killer. Now, after the Outsiders, Black Lightning, both B names, kept a low profile, but continued to occasionally appear alongside his friends and allies. And when the 7 heavy hitters reformed the Justice League in Grant Morrison's JLA, Black Lightning became a reserve member of the team, and his efforts during the Mageddon Crisis, which was Grant Morrison's final story, were critical as he taxed his abilities like never before, attempting to tap the electrical field of the planet. Now, all of that stuff that I just said was basically to the reasoning that the writers give to explain why you didn't see Black Lightning during the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
A lot, or, okay?
Yeah.
Also, I want to talk about his daughters. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about his daughters a little bit here, even though we're gonna go ahead quite a bit and then we're gonna go backwards. But I want to get the daughters out of the way because his daughters have become an important part of Black Lightning.
Yeah.
Now, Jefferson Pierce has 2 daughters.
Yep.
Both of their mothers are Lynn Stewart. And they've both followed in Jefferson's footsteps, and they've both become superheroes. His oldest daughter is Anissa, and has taken on the name of Thunder. She has also served on an incarnation of the Outsiders. He has a 16-year-old daughter who is called Jennifer, who was recruited by the JSA under the code name of Lightning. Now, just to let you know, Kingdom Come, which is what, Ashley?
Kingdom Come is an Elseworld story set in the far future where the new generation of superheroes has really taken over the world, and the old generation, which is the one that we're most familiar with, has to decide what they're going to do about it.
Yeah, basically the new generation of superheroes basically kill villains. Yeah. Basically. In Kingdom Come, Lightning is there. Jefferson's youngest daughter. Yeah, she is there. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, fun fact, to go back to your thing where people think that Black Lightning is the father of Static.
Yeah.
In Justice League of America Volume 2, number 27, Jefferson Pierce claims that people frequently ask him if he is the father of Static, much to his chagrin.
That's super funny.
And it is later revealed that Static is actually a huge fan of Black Lightning and has a poster of him in Titans Tower. This is when Static was part of the Teen Titans.
As he should. Yep. I mean, their costumes are even the same colors, for goodness sake. I love that.
Now that we have that out of the way, let's go back in time.
Okay.
Now, Jefferson's now 22-year-old daughter, Anissa, graduated in pre-med at medical school. And she had this done basically just to satisfy her parents because the very next day she didn't get a doctor job. She set out to fight crime.
Good for her.
Yep. Much to the disapproval of her father, who did not want to have it.
Yeah.
She drew the attention of former Titans member Arsenal, who after the demise of the Titans sought to assemble a new team of Outsiders. She accepted this offer, reasoning that her father might feel better about her crime fighting if she was in the company of others. Now, this Outsiders team was, of course, Nightwing's team of Outsiders.
Yes, it was.
Even though it was formed by Arsenal. Now, Black Lightning came out of retirement to help the Outsiders battle Sabbac. Following this battle, he begged Anissa to give up adventuring, but to no avail. And if anything, she just became more inspired by her father's heroics because he helped rescue them. So it had a backfire.
Cool.
Yeah. When Jefferson returned to the White House, because at this time, as I said, President Luther was in charge of the United States. His Secretary of Education, he made it Jefferson Pierce. Now, this Outsiders adventure where Jefferson rescued the team happened while Jefferson was in the White House.
Oh, man, Luthor loved that.
So Jefferson was in a suit. He heard about the Outsiders, put on his costume, zappity, 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 zappity. He came back to the White House. Okay?
Okay.
Now we're back into the lesson.
Yeah.
Jefferson came back to the White House. And at this time, Luther was no longer president because he'd gone crazy. Luther's president was Pete Ross.
What?
Superman's best friend. Just go with it. It's kind of ridiculous. But Pete Ross, president of the United States.
Sure.
He asked for Jefferson's resignation as the Secretary of Education because the government feared that the political implications of having a known superhero on staff could cause a lot of problems, so Jeff complied. Now, Ashley, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think it's a neat idea or a flawed idea that they made Jefferson Pierce part of President Luther's cabinet?
I think it's flawed. I really like the idea that he becomes the Secretary of Education. I think that is a powerful thing to do to an African American character, considering we really like to see those characters in the style of Luke Cage tend to be all about overcoming adversity.
Sure.
And it is nice while Jefferson has done that, it is nice to see him go on to a position where he can really affect some real change outside of superheroing. I think the fact that it's under President Luthor isn't great. Because he's a bad guy.
Well, he made his whole cabinet like characters that we know. Like Cat Grant was his press secretary.
Yeah. But I mean, he wasn't a great president.
No.
And he's evil. Which is where I think the idea becomes flawed.
Well, of course. The idea of President Luther is a flawed idea, but it's a good story idea. But
it's a good story.
But let me flip it to you on this. This is before Smallville was on the air. Smallville retconned Lex Luthor, and DC Comics followed suit by making Lex Luthor's hometown Smallville again.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Nope, it's a great idea. I love that idea.
I don't like it.
Before this, Lex Luthor's hometown was Metropolis, and he grew up in Suicide Slum.
Yeah.
So if you go off that, they have a connection. They both grew up in Suicide Slum.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I mean,
I'm just bringing that up.
I think that's interesting, but I just think the idea that like a supervillain is the one who has to appoint him Secretary of Education, I'm like, well, that's not great. You know?
Sure.
All right.
Enough political talk. Let's talk about Green Arrow.
Okay.
Next, Jefferson Pierce's affiliation with Green Arrow would come into play because his niece, Joanna, was killed after becoming a lawyer in one of Green Arrow's cases. At the conclusion of this, Black Lightning was responsible for the death of Joanna's killer, Martin Summers, or so he believed. In truth, it was actually Deathstroke had killed the guy and made the killing blow himself, but he allowed Black Lightning to believe that he had actually zapped him to death.
That's not nice.
Jeff blamed Ollie in part for Joanna's death. The two of them had been intimate, Joanna and Green Arrow, but they were soon forced into action together when they were attacked by Dr. Light, because Dr. Light at this time was acting in retaliation to the Justice League erasing his memories years before. Jefferson then revealed to Ollie that the Department of Defense had the evidence of the JLA's habit of mind-wiping villains, which he discovered while serving on Luthor's cabinet.
Interesting.
Dr. Light managed to surprise the heroes and critically injure Green Arrow's young protege, Mia, who was speedy at the time.
Oh, Mia!
And Jeff was forced to attempt to jumpstart her heart with his powers because, you know,
he's a human defibrillator.
He is a human defibrillator. Though Mia was saved, Oliver's hometown, Star City, was not saved, as Dr. Light detonated a bomb that took out an entire city block, and the ensuing chaos ultimately led to Oliver Queen's election as the mayor of Star City.
You're just making me want Black Lightning to cross over with Arrow on TV.
Oh, man, it's going to be so good. Then we move to Infinite Crisis. Actually, we talked about it last week, but what is it again?
Superboy Prime is really mad, so he punches a bunch of holes in reality, effectively rebooting a bunch of properties.
That is right. Black Lightning was one of 8 people that Batman had considered to aid him in destroying the Brother Eye satellite, which controlled the OMAX. Now, Ashley, really quickly, do you know who Brother Eye is?
Not real. Other than the thing that controls the OMAX, no. Brother
Eye is just this basically sentient satellite that Batman built that watches all the superheroes, and the OMAX are just these robots that, kill superheroes.
Yeah, that do what Brother Eye says.
Yep. Booster Gold, who was not on the list of 8 but knew about the candidates from his knowledge of the future, contacted Lightning before Batman did and basically brought all of the recruits to Batman, being like, I knew you guys. Yeah, I knew you were going to call them.
I was just helping.
Yep. Lightning, of course, accepted, arriving at the Batcave to await the orders, and then he formed an alliance with Mr. Terrific, combining their powers of electric manipulation and invisibility to technology to strike the villainous Brother Eye from the inside.
Oh, that's smart.
Yep. And after the third secret society of supervillains were formed, Black Lightning began using his status as Luthor's Secretary of Education to gain information from supervillains because they thought he was on their side because of the Luthor connection.
Fools! They were all fools.
Following this and the sacrifice of the Superman of Earth 2 and the others in the Crisis, Jefferson Pierce turned himself in for killing Martin Summers. Remember that? Mm-hmm. His friends and family tried unsuccessfully to dissuade him, but he turned himself over to Checkmate, who put him in Iron Heights prison under the identity of Derek Cooper because they didn't want people to, figure out he was a supervillain. Meanwhile, Nightwing was approached by the Red Hood, who had evidence to acquit Black Lightning. The Hood had eavesdropped on a conversation between Luthor, who, because of Infinite Crisis, was actually Alexander Luthor Jr. in disguise, and Deathstroke, who admitted that he killed Summers just as Pierce's lightning struck too. Jeff's daughter, Anissa, hurried to bring her father the good news, but Jefferson would not believe it and stayed in prison.
No, leave.
Anissa implored the Outsiders to free her father from prison. While they initially refused, it wasn't long before other inmates discovered the truth about this Cooper guy and figured out that he was Black Lightning. And they put a hit on him.
That's no good.
The gang leader was called Skeet, and he charged the young Captain Boomerang to kill him, or kill Cooper. And the Outsiders learned of this plot and finally agreed to get him out. Pierce was also eventually convinced that he was innocent of his charges and realized the danger of being in Iron Heights. Boomerang had become his cellmate, and young Owen Mercer was actually not his father's son. This was basically Boomerang Jr.
Yeah.
He could not bring himself to kill Pierce and became his ally instead. And just as they had plotted to escape, Nightwing sent the Outsiders into the prison. Things quickly got out of hand, and Warden Wolf responded to this by using his metahuman muscle control powers to bring the prisoners under control. In his anger, his powers caused extreme pain, and the Outsider called Shift conjures a gas to counteract the effects. Wolf responded by increasing the control and killing dozens of guards and prisoners. Shift protected the Outsiders from this, Jeff and Boomerang from the effect, and in the pivotal moment, the Outsiders decided to use this as a ploy to fake all of their deaths. They sent off a decoy craft which had been destroyed, and Jeff resumed his life while the world believed that Thunder and the other Outsiders had died. This, of course, led the Outsiders into the 1 year later story jump, where we come to the 1 year later and everybody's like, oh, the Outsiders are alive? What?
Yeah. So, everyone is Jimmy Stewart.
Yep. Black Lightning renewed his career as a costumed adventurer and eventually met up with Hawkgirl on a case in St. Roch, Louisiana. He followed a trail from Metropolis about the recent supervillain activity involving the android body of Red Tornado. Lightning and Hawkgirl fought one of the villains, Trident, and then brought them to the Batcave to show Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman as they were sitting there looking at pictures of the Justice League for 5 issues, deciding who to make Justice League members.
That's dumb.
It's a boring 5 issues. No, it's written by Brett Meltzer, and Brett Meltzer, I like your other stuff, but oh my God, really? 5 issues of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman looking at pictures? What, have you read a comic book before, my friend? Okay. Basically, Black Lightning joins the Justice League.
Yeah. Yay, finally.
Yeah. Black Lightning at this time is basically primarily based in Washington, D.C., and was the first member of the League to respond to the attacks of the Amazons from Themyscira, and even managed to save the then current president of the United States from the Amazons.
Nice.
Then comes Final Crisis. Ashley, what's that?
Final Crisis is the one where Batman dies because Darkseid shoots him with a gun.
Darkseid takes over the world, basically.
Yeah.
During this, Jefferson is seen trying to deliver papers to those survivors still in need of world information, as all the electronic forms of communication have been taken over by Darkseid's anti-life equation messaging system. In doing so, he runs into Tattooed Man and his family and helps them escape Darkseid's Justifiers. Eventually, Jefferson is captured and forced to become a Justifier himself, but not before setting Tattooed Man on a mission to the Hall of Justice to deliver a message to Green Arrow and carry the circuit. As part of the Justifiers, Pierce joined Green Arrow and travels to the Justice League Watchtower, where they unsuccessfully try to convert Black Canary and Tattooed Man into Justifiers without success. And then the New 52 happens.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, Flash runs back in time because he misses his mom and resets the universe. So the New 52 is where everyone's only been a superhero for 5 years and they all have lines on their costumes.
In the New 52, Black Lightning basically comes into conflict with Blue Devil over the confrontation of Tobias Whale's Crime Wave, and he later made an appearance as a possible recruit for the Justice League. That's basically it. But now, currently in the comic book stores, Tony Isabella, who is the creator of Black Lightning, has now doing a miniseries where he's rebooting the character.
Yeah.
And the series now takes place in Cleveland and basically forgets much of the previous history of the character. So, yeah. And now
we'll see how it goes.
And now we have a season 1 of a new CW Black Lightning TV show, as I said, starring Cress Williams. And that is where Black Lightning is.
Wow. Awesome. Great job.
Let's move into the next section.
The recommended reading. And if you go over to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, you can find everything Jason is going to recommend if you want more Black Lightning in your life. And you can find a bunch of stuff that we have recommended in the past. You click on the little Amazon widget, you buy it, and you help us continue to recommend you more reading in the future.
That is correct. The first recommendation, of course, is Black Lightning Year 1.
Yeah.
Even though I spoiled the big part of it, it's beautiful because it's art by Cully Hamner, and it's good moments. It's got good stuff in it. It's one of my favorite Black Lightning stories, if not the best.
Nice.
Next is Batman and the Outsiders Volume 1. This is a big giant omnibus of the first adventures of the Outsiders. The Outsiders is a great team in the DC universe, and Black Lightning is a good part of it. So that's another thing you should read. The third one is Black Lightning Volume 1. This is by Tony Isabella. It collects his, first 10 or so issues. I'm not certain how many issues it collects, but it is his original series. This is the series where he debuted. It's very 70s, but it's a lot of fun, and I think it goes to show you how strong a character Jefferson Pierce is.
Nice.
All right, let's move into the discussion.
We're going to discuss stuff.
Ashley, let's talk about Black Lightning.
Yeah.
Is there a team or a dynamic, maybe a team up, that you would like to see Black Lightning explore more in the comics?
I didn't know that he had teamed up with Mr. Terrific in the past. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. And I think because they're two characters on the show, they're in the forefront. They have more eyes on them now than they ever have before. So why not? They're also two characters that maybe are struggling to find the place that they belong in the current comics continuity. We'll see how the Black Lightning series played out at the time of this recording. It's just begun, so it's too early to judge.
It's like 2 or 3 issues.
Yeah. But as you say in our 2013 episode, you can't judge off of 3 issues.
Nope, you can't.
So maybe, but like Curtis/Michael doesn't really have a home right now. And
Terrifics.
I would love, that's about to launch.
Which hasn't even started yet at the time of this recording.
But I would love to see them pair up. I think that could be really, really interesting. I totally forgot that the Terrific is going to happen. I also think he would be a good leader of like a secondary Justice League team. I'm not sure what it would be called.
The Outsiders,
I guess. But I think he's a character who is a great mentor, and I would love to see him fulfilling that role in the superhero communities. Yeah, I guess probably, and because he's a dad, and because he's a good dad.
Should he be involved with the Teen Titans then?
Maybe.
Like, should he be the hero of the Teen Titans?
That's interesting.
Because he's a dad and he's a teacher.
Yeah, put him on the Teen Titans. Great, love it. 10 out of 10.
Like, let's move the Teen Titans to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, sure. Like, he's the standing mentor of the Teen Titans. Yeah. And then, Black Canary can come in and kick their butts in training or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, love it. Great.
All right, cool. All right, let's move into the teaching tweet.
Where in 140 characters or less, because we're old school, Professor Jason is going to summarize everything you need to know about Black Lightning. And you can find this tweet at GHL Podcast. Like it, retweet it, and respond to it.
Black Lightning. Justice like lightning is brave and bold. Much like a teacher, Jefferson Pierce never needed tights to be a hero.
Oh, I love that. That's so nice.
So let's move into the GHL Honor Roll. What's that, Ashley?
The Honor Roll is the final section of our podcast where if you go on over to iTunes and you give us a 5-star review and you write something, we'll read it because it helps us in the iTunes algorithm. It helps other nerds like you find us, and we love you for it. So, Jason, who's joining us today?
MWMIV Speaks joins us in the GHL Honor Roll.
Great.
And they say, the Geek Bible, 5 stars. Please read this as Doctor Strange in parentheses. So now I'm going to read the rest as Doctor Strange. Oh, I love this podcast so much. These hosts are incredible and give serious voiceover realness! ! I wanted to hear two strangers more. I assume they say I've never wanted to hear two strangers' voices more. MMWMIV Speaks. I assume for you. They're my favorite part of the day. Keep going, guys. Woo. That's the review.
That was so great, Stevie.
Steven. If you want more Doctor Strange Clea goodness, of course, go back and listen to our Doctor Strange show, the holiday special that I think is going to become our new holiday tradition, the Doctor Strange show. But thank you, MWMIV Speaks, for leaving that review. You want to join them in the honor roll? Go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. You can literally say you suck, and we'll read it on the show. Woo! All right, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes while you're over there leaving us our 5-star review. You can also listen to the show on Spotify and SoundCloud and the universe. Just put your ear to the universe. You're going to hear us. I guarantee it.
Maybe if you're outside our window.
Well, sure. Actually, if they want to suggest future lessons like Black Lightning, like our awesome Mind University group did over on Facebook, where can they do that?
You can do that at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, and again on Twitter at GHL Podcast. There's a gazillion ways to contact us in all of those places.
Yes, and you can support the show again and join that awesome Facebook group that I was talking about on patreon.com/Jawman. It's the way we keep this show free for you guys, because otherwise this would cost you money. And Geek History Lesson Extra podcast episode this week is going to be us making predictions for Black Lightning Season 1.
Yeah.
Go follow us on Twitter. Me on Twitter at Jawin, Jawiin. Ashley's on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. And the podcast is on Twitter at GHL Podcast. And if you want even more Twitter good stuff, Jupiter Jet, our comic book, has a Twitter as well. It's at Jupiter Jet Comic.
Yep.
All right, that is it for this Geek History lesson. I am Jason Electrifying Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson and Professor Jason. Why don't you dismiss the class?
Zap, 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 zap. Or maybe it should be like, Black Lightning. He's the man with the electrifying touch. It's too much.